Hi there, Medical Wildcats. If you are a baseball fan, you know what that song is, being played by Gary Pressey on the giant Lowry organ at Wrigley Field, where he played for 33 years without missing a game. And if you're a Chicago baseball fan, whether you're a Cubs or a White Sox fan, you know the names of Wrigley and Comiskey. So today, let's explore the lives of these Chicago baseball magnates, William Wrigley and his son P.K. Wrigley and Charles Comiskey. So who was Wrigley? Well, the Wrigley Field is named after him. William Wrigley was born in 1861 and took over the team in the early 20th century. His son, Philip Wrigley, or better known as P.K. Wrigley, took over the team upon his father's death in 1932. And upon P.K.'s death, his son took over, but had to sell the team to the Tribune because of estate taxes. Wrigley Field is the second oldest major league park, second only to Fenway Park in Boston. It was designed by Zachary Taylor Davis. Originally, it was called Weegham Park for the Chicago Whales of the Federal League, but that team folded in 1915. It became Cubs Park in 1920 and then Wrigley Field in 1927. So who was Comiskey? Well, his name is attached to Comiskey Park. He was born in 1859, so his life almost coincided with William Wrigley. Comiskey Park was the oldest major league park in the United States when it was demolished in 1991. Like Wrigley Field, it was designed by Zachary Taylor Davis, and its red brick and the sloping Romanesque arches were reminiscent of the ethnic churches in the neighborhood. It was called a pitcher's park because of the long distance along the first and third baselines and the power alleys. Night baseball began there in 1939 so that workers on the south side could attend the games. A new Comiskey Park was built across 35th Street and opened in 1991. Since then, the name has been changed to U.S. Cellular Field and Guaranteed Rate Field. The new park is on the right in this picture. So William Wrigley, as I said, was a contemporary of Charles Comiskey. You can see their lifespans almost coincided. William's paternal grandfather, Edward, immigrated from England to Philadelphia. The family was in the wool business in England. When his father came to Philadelphia, he started manufacturing scouring soap. William's first job was feeding the horses at age 9 for 50 cents a month. He was expelled from grammar school, and it sounds like he was sort of the class clown. One of the things he did was he threw a pie at the sign for the school. He ran away to New York City at age 11, where he sold newspapers and did odd jobs. He returned to Philadelphia to work in his father's soap factory after a few months and stirred vats of soap 10 hours a day for $1.50 a week. He then decided he wanted to get into sales. He sold soap in Philadelphia. With each purchase of soap, he gave away some cheap umbrellas. He then offered baking powder with the soap purchases. He moved to Chicago in 1891 with his wife, daughter, and $32 in his pocket. And he changed from selling soap to selling baking powder. And then he was giving chewing gum with each purchase. He changed from selling baking powder to selling chewing gum. And then he was giving away fishing tackle, lamps, cookbooks, razors as premiums. The chewing gum business was cutthroat in the United States in the 1880s, and there were more than a dozen companies that made it. The largest 6 companies merged and offered William Wrigley a place in the trust, but he declined. He became a distributor for Zeno Gum, perhaps the biggest seller in the United States, and then he bought the factory in 1911. He opened his own chewing gum factory at 3535 South Ashland, which was shuttered in 2005. Ironically, it was only a mile and a half from Comiskey Park. He manufactured spearmint, juicy fruit, and double mint. Spearmint became the most popular brand, the most popular flavor in 1910, and oil of spearmint was thought to have health benefits. Wrigley believed in the importance of advertising, and his motto was, "Tell him quick and tell him often." He sent free samples of his game to 8.5 million Americans and marketed his gum as a substitute for tobacco. He became interested in baseball almost as a hobby and started buying stock in the Cubs in 1916. And by 1921, he had controlling interest. He bought teams in California and Pennsylvania also. Cubs Park became Wrigley Field in 1927. William Wrigley, unlike his son PK, traveled with the team and attended most home games. His son PK, as I said, became the owner after William's death in 1932. The family's house was at 2466 North Lakeview Avenue, overlooking Lincoln Park, and the house still stands today. It was originally built in 1896 for Joseph Thurer, a Chicago brewer. They sold it to the Wrigleys in 1911. William and his family moved out in 1932, and it has been considered several times to be the mayor's residence in Chicago, but it has never been sold as such. It's always been sold to a private owner. William Wrigley and his daughter and his son PK and his wife moved to 1500 North Lakeshore Drive in 1932. This beautiful high-rise facing Lake Michigan still stands. The family had a two-story suite in this high-rise. The family moved from the Lakeview house because they feared kidnapping after the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped. The family retained ownership in the Lakeview house, however, until 1984, and the new owners found bootleg Prohibition-era liquor behind the walls. The family also had homes in Wisconsin, Arizona, California, and Illinois. And William died at the summer home in Arizona. The family bought Catalina Island in 1919, where they built a casino, country club, training site for the Cubs with the exact dimensions of Wrigley Field, the world's largest dance hall, a bird sanctuary, and his wife had a 37-acre garden. They mined silver, copper, and zinc from the island, and the family later donated the island to the Catalina Island Conservancy. It is now accessible for tourists. These are some of the quotes that Wrigley had, which were the philosophy behind his business and his life. As you can see, they're all related to business, not to baseball, but he was successful at both. His son PK, like his father, flunked out of school. PK flunked out of the prestigious Phillips Academy. His parents wanted him to study chemistry at Yale, and they hired a tutor for him, but he enrolled briefly at University of Chicago. He dropped out of U of C and went to Australia to run the family business. And he took over the Gum Company and the Cubs when his father died in 1932. PK wanted to make a visit to the ballpark enjoyable, so he expanded the aisles and reduced the number of seats in the boxes for more room for the spectators. In 1937, he ordered Chinese elm trees to be planted in the center field bleachers, but these blew down. Front office man Bill Veeck Jr., who later became the owner of the White Sox, replaced the trees with ivy on the outfield fence, the signature feature of Wrigley Field. In 1935, PK proclaimed that night baseball was just a passing fad, but he began installing lights in the field in 1941, but stopped in order to donate the metal standards to the war effort. When the National League expanded in 1962, the other owners put pressure on him to put in lights, but he resisted, saying it would disturb the neighbors. The first night game was on August 8th, 1988, 8-8-88. It was rained out in the fourth inning, however, and Gary Pressey started playing "Rainy Days and Mondays Always Get Me Down," the Carpenters tune, because it was a Monday evening. The rain came down in sheets until midnight and the game was canceled. Wrigley Field was the first baseball stadium to have an organ. PK founded the All-American Professional Girls Baseball League at the beginning of during World War II. He wanted to replace baseball because he was afraid that Major League Baseball would be canceled because of the war effort with no players available. However, Major League Baseball did continue through the war. He also wanted to get women interested in baseball as spectators. The teams were from the war production towns around Chicago and had such sexist names as the Milwaukee Chicks, the Fort Wayne Daisies, and the Kalamazoo Lassies. PK required that his players wear lipstick, skirted uniforms, traveled with chaperones, all attended mandatory charm school, and they had strict behavior on and off the field. The league was immortalized in the 1992 movie, A League of Their Own, where Gary Marshall portrayed a character based loosely on P.K. Wrigley. P.K. was a better businessman than he was a team owner. After the 1945 World Series, the Cubs only had 7 winning seasons for the next 32. They had 16 straight losing seasons between 1947 and 1962. PK, unlike his father, attended few games. The Cubs' curse was blamed on several things, perhaps attempts to keep salaries low, his reluctance to hire black players, although Ernie Banks played for him for many years of his career and never won a World Series ring, and his method of using a college of coaches where the coaching duties would be rotated with each game, so the players never knew who the next coach was going to be. Charles Comiskey, owner of the White Sox, was entirely devoted to baseball. He was not a businessman with baseball as a hobby. In 5 decades, he became manager, player, and owner. He was nicknamed Commie and the Old Romans. He played pitcher and first base. He was the son of a longtime Chicago alderman, Honest John Comiskey, who represented the neighborhoods on the near west side. His father immigrated from Ireland in 1848, moved to Chicago in 1852. He insisted that work and education were the keys to success, and he wanted Charles to become a plumber. He said he hated idleness and play. Charles briefly attended St. Mary's College in Kansas, a Jesuit school which closed in 1931. They were known for their baseball teams, and this is a picture of the 1922 team well after Charles' college days. Charles was driving a brick wagon in 1876, and this became famous because he was hauling a load of bricks to the rebuilt City Hall downtown. Well, the delivery was delayed because Charles saw a baseball game in progress and the pitcher was performing poorly, so he went in and took his place. So the load of bricks was delayed. He played amateur or semi-pro baseball in Chicago for several years. He left home for good in 1877 and went to play for the Dubuque Rabbits in Iowa in 1878. He earned $50 a month during the summers, and in the off season, he sold newspapers and candies to the railroad passengers. He started his career as a pitcher, but moved to first base because of arm problems. He was one of the first basemen to play off the first base line and off the bag in order to field hits, line drive hits to right field. He then started playing ball with the St. Louis Brown Stockings, and he played for 6 seasons. He was promoted to playing manager for 5 of the seasons, and he was one of the first players to slide head first. He said if he did this, he could reach farther with his arms than the traditional way of sliding leg first. He could also keep an eye on what was going on in the outfield and infield by sliding head first. He guided St. Louis to 4 consecutive pennants, 1885 to 1888. And in 1886, his Brown Stockings defeated the Chicago White Stockings of the National League in a 6-game series, a precursor of the World Series. In 1893, Comiskey and sports writer Ben Johnson formed a Western League, and this would eventually become the American League and challenge the National League. The American League was charging 25 cents for admission, and National League was charging 50 cents. Comiskey never forgot this in his years as owner and manager. And the Western League became the American League, competing with the National League. He purchased the Sioux City Cornhuskers in Iowa of the Western League in 1894 and moved the franchise to St. Paul, Minnesota, where they became the St. Paul Saints. He served as owner and manager. In 1900, he received permission from the National League to bring his team to Chicago, as long as he did not use the city's name in the team name. He named the team the White Sox in reference to the team he defeated in the 1886 postseason series. He became the owner of the White Sox in 1900 until his death in 1931, and he was the first player to become a team owner. The Western League became the American League, and the White Sox won their first pennant the first year in 1901 and again in 1906. He defeated his crosstown rivals, the Cubs, in the 1906 World Series. The White Sox originally played at Southside Park until 1910. Comiskey then put up his own $750,000 to build Comiskey Park, but he was reputed to be tight with his players. He made them wash their own uniforms, so it was said they had the dirtiest uniforms in the league. He paid them $3 a day for their meals instead of $4 as the other teams had done. He promised them a bonus if they would win the 1917 pennant. Instead, he gave them a case of cheap champagne. Teams lowered their salaries during World War I and then raised them again when the war was over. Comiskey did not raise them at the end of the war. Perhaps the low point of his career, despite his success for many years, was the Black Sox scandal of 1919, where 8 players conspired to throw the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds. It was thought that this was possibly due to the fact that the players had low morale due to their low salaries. Comiskey initially suspended the players, but then ended up paying their legal fees. 7 players were banned for life, which this devastated the team, and the White Sox did not win another pennant until 1959. But he was a compassionate owner who loved the fans. He gave away 75,000 tickets every season to schoolboys. He let the fans move into the high-priced, sheltered box seats when it rained. He donated to the war effort in 1917. And these are some of his quotes about baseball and life. As you can see, they're mostly baseball and very little about his business, because with him, baseball was business. He was elected to the Hall of Fame after his death in 1939. He won 5 American League pennants and 2 World Series. As a player, he had a .264 batting average and over 1,500 hits. His managerial record was 840 wins and 541 losses. He is buried at the Calvary Cemetery, the large cemetery you see as you drive north on Sheridan Road at the southern end of Evanston. Well, let's hope baseball season begins soon. And I urge you to look at the superb program that our Alumni Association has put together. And please sign up to come to Alumni Weekend, April 29th and 30th. And I hope to see everybody there.